Lohrenz at the Department of Marine Science, and I want to start off by applauding the Obama administration in its efforts to develop a comprehensive national ocean policy that will promote the responsible use and stewardship of our oceans, coasts, and Great Lakes. I also commend the members of the National Ocean Policy Task Force for their effort to gather input from a broad constituency in working to establish an effective ocean policy. The importance of a national ocean policy has long been recognized. It was a central theme in the 1969 Stratton Commission report entitled Our Nation and the Sea. Recommendations of that report ultimately led to the formation of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as well as legislation that remains a major part of our current ocean policy. Since the time of the Stratton Commission, increasing awareness that our ocean resources are finite and ocean ecosystems vulnerable to human impact has provided incentive to develop a more unified ocean policy with a clear set of national goals, measurable objectives, and defined governance. The need for a clearly defined national ocean policy was endorsed by two recent reports, including the 2003 Pew Oceans Commission report entitled America's Living Oceans, Charting a Course for Sea Change, and the 2004 U.S. Commission on Ocean Policy report entitled The Ocean Blueprint for the 21st Century. The chairman of the Pew Ocean Commission, the Honorable Leon Panetta, now the director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, noted that since the time of the Stratton Commission, the primary focus of ocean policy has necessarily shifted from one of protecting human access to the ocean and its resources to one of managing human impact in order to sustain and protect ocean resources and ecosystems. The time when oceans could be treated as an inexhaustible resource has long passed. We now recognize that oceans are fragile and limited in their capacity to withstand the effects of human activities. Indeed, we've already vastly altered ocean ecosystems in ways that include overfishing, as Cynthia has pointed out, loss of critical habitat, introduction of invasive species, and diminished water quality. And these problems will continue to get worse if we do not embrace an ocean policy that seeks to balance the human use of our oceans with sustainability and stewardship. To achieve such a balance will require ocean policy decisions that are based in the best science available. For example, sustaining economically important fisheries will require an understanding of factors necessary for maintaining the health of desirable species so that recreational and commercial fishing interests can be managed and accommodated without depleting entire populations. And again, Cynthia's examples are a very good example of that. Another situation where science-based decision-making is essential is in the case of coastal restoration. Restoring our coasts can have tremendous benefits in the form of reducing storm surge, restoring habitat for marine life, but restoration activities must be carefully monitored to ensure that the desired results are achieved without detrimental effects to water quality and ecosystem integrity. A key part of science-based decision-making will involve regional ecosystem assessments, an activity that examines systems as a whole and takes into account the various factors that lead to a healthy and well-functioning ecosystem. Another role for science will be that of carrying out the required mapping of ocean regions and their associated features in support of marine spatial planning. Marine spatial planning is a component in the implementation of a national policy, and it involves an approach to understanding resources and habitat in a given area so as to balance the interests of multiple users while preserving the integrity and sustainability of those resources. The vast majority of the U.S. exclusive economic zone has not yet been mapped, which is a clear indication of the need for the role of science in the implementation of ocean policy and developing a better understanding of what resources are available and what regions remain to be mapped. Ultimately, we will also need operational observing systems that provide physical, chemical, and biological data to monitor and predict change so that we can maximize ocean benefits in a sustainable manner. In short, science must be the underlying basis for developing sustainable management strategies for future use and stewardship of our oceans. We can cite a number of examples in the Gulf where marine spatial planning and ocean policy are going to play an important, or can play an important role. The Gulf, Cynthia has pointed out, is a very rich source of our nation's fisheries, one of the most productive fisheries regions in the nation. In fact, there are estimates that would say the amount of fisheries harvest in the Gulf exceeds that of the entire east coast of the U.S. Balancing fisheries with other needs and interests such as oil and gas, marine transportation, is going to be a challenge, and one that has been achieved thus far with reasonable effectiveness, but clearly there's a need for a much more comprehensive policy to manage and balance these various interests. Another example in the Gulf where you can see the multiple uses occurring in sort of a similar location is in the case of the Flower Garden Banks off the Texas-Louisiana coast. Here you have one of the healthiest, arguably one of the healthiest coral reef ecosystems in the Gulf and Caribbean, and yet it exists in proximity to oil platforms and is a popular place for recreational fishing and is a very rich and diverse ecosystem. So managing and protecting these kinds of resources and accommodating the various uses is going to be a key objective of a effective national ocean policy. So in conclusion, I want to restate my enthusiastic supports for the efforts of the National Ocean Policy Task Force and the establishment of a unified national ocean policy. The oceans influence every aspect of human life, and not just in coastal communities where over half the U.S. population resides. The oceans are critical to the U.S. economy as a source of food, mineral resources, recreation, and a means of transporting goods and services. The oceans are a major driver in the water and heat cycles of our planet, and so play a central role in our changing weather and climate. Now is the time for a comprehensive, science-based national ocean policy that will enable us to better understand and manage our ocean treasures so that we can preserve and protect them for generations to come.